Basically, my experience with Bombardier was so disappointing that they don't simply care about the customer's safety at all, and it would take either a death or a major injury for them to even do something about it. I mean, the bottom line is the large companies like this should be held accountable for the customer's safety, and currently they're not. I bought a 2013 model when I first saw the trikes come out. I think I paid about $42,000 for it. Initially the bike was okay, but then obviously after a small period of time, different faults started to occur on the bike. The first sort of issues were only sort of major, and obviously they replaced them slowly over time, but probably the major issue was the overheating on the bike. It got to the point where it got so hot, the BRP I think recalled 5,000 of the bikes. My understanding through social media that I read was at least 2 of the bikes had exploded into flames, and one person also got third-degree burns. BRP's solution to this problem was to recall the bikes, basically put some extra heat shielding under the fuel tank to minimize the risk of explosion, but it sort of didn't really fix the overheating issue at all. So at that point I'd had the bike for about 12 months and I sort of had a gut full of all the problems with it. So I looked at the 2014 model because they'd redesigned the entire bike. Took it for a test ride for about a half an hour, halfway to the Gold Coast here in Brisbane and back. They had dramatically improved the heating issues. The bike ran at normal temperatures. It ran really well. I thought it's worthwhile giving it a shot, so I ended up buying the new bike. It was probably less than a month and then the problem started. I suppose the first major issue with the bike was that the handbrake on the bike, that's a foot brake, when you stopped on any sort of an incline, the bike would not sit still. It basically would roll back into traffic. So I had to use a block of wood under the back wheels to stop it from rolling into traffic or obviously hitting another car. I mean, admittedly, a $42,000 bike, you have to buy accessories like a block of wood to stop it from having accidents, right? But that's a different story. Then obviously the problem started after that. Things like, I think the aerial broke twice, the side pannier hinge broke with nothing in the pannier other than just simply opening it. The front end had issues. It used to bounce on the road and vibrate. Had to replace both headlight bulbs with less than 2 years. Also had to replace the entire front end disc braking system because it had completely shut itself. The headlight covers on the bike also had to be replaced within 2 years. Air suspension that raised the back end of the bike, the compressor on that also failed within 2 years and was never replaced because at that point I had enough of going backwards and forwards. And I suppose probably the worst and most major issue was the bike had a safety system with a computer built into it. So what it was designed to do is when you drive around a sharp corner and if one of the wheels, for example, lift off the ground, it's designed to actually apply pressure to the brakes and cut the engine. Now, what used to happen on my bike was it would apply pressure so severely to the back brake, the back wheel would lock up and the motor power would not cut at all. So obviously that caused me to spin out in oncoming traffic. The first time I think I really noticed that it happened once or twice on a straight line actually, but I didn't think too much of it. I thought it was just compression braking. But the first time we had a major problem was I was in wet weather conditions going from a set of lights and I had my daughter on the back as well just to top it all off, and we went around a sharp corner and as we were accelerating the back wheel just basically completely jammed. I spun 180 degrees into oncoming traffic, which is quite exciting in sense but not. And at the end of the day, luckily I was far enough ahead of the traffic. All the vehicles coming up from behind me saw that I'd spun out and was facing them coming onto the road on 2-lane traffic. They were all able to just manage and pull up. So at that point I was able to just do a U-turn and then drive off home obviously at that stage. Now the bike went into the shop for about I think it was a week or so, and the mechanics couldn't really find out what was wrong with it. So they said it all seemed fine. So I got the bike back and I was riding it the next week. And basically I was able to replicate the problem. I could actually identify what the actual issue was. So I was able to replicate that fault at least 30 times on 30 corners. I was able to lock up the back wheel and bring the bike to a halt. And that was the only way you could basically unlock the back tyre, was to actually stop in traffic. Now, obviously, the 30 times I replicated that fault, I was able to do it in controlled conditions with no traffic behind me. So it was safe to do so, but it was more to prove a point. The computer was faulty. Took it back to the dealership. They said, yep, we've replicated the fault as well. We've ordered you a new computer. I ended up paying for all the labour. BRP in their kindness decided to replace the computer and keep it. So it got to the point where I'd sold the bike and bought a new Harley trike because it was just too much. It was just problem after problem. One thing would be fixed, another thing would break. There was a couple of unresolved issues still at that point. And to be quite honest, I really didn't feel safe riding the bike at all at that stage. And my daughter at that point wouldn't even get back on the bike either because she was just too paranoid. So anyway, long story short, we ended up taking BRP to court here in Australia over it. And unfortunately, I lost the court case on technical merit because they said I wasn't able to provide a technician's report saying what the fault was. Now, given that BRP kept the part and wouldn't provide me the part to have it analysed, there was no way I could have a technical report done saying that the part was definitely faulty and was dangerous. And miraculously, when I asked for the part from BRP, it actually disappeared. It was no longer to be found. No matter what Bombardier did at this point, I really don't trust their products. I had so many faults and so many problems with it. Not to mention I lost over $42,000 on the bikes between the two of them, just trading the one to the other and then having to take a big loss on the second one as well, just to buy something that would be safe to drive on the roads is beyond a joke. I don't think anything Bombardier could do would ever get me back on a BRP Spider. If the world was coming to an end, even then, I would rather die than ride another Bombardier, if you know what I mean.